flow.
Welcome to episode 134 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. The Toronto Maple Leafs are on fire. They've won 4 games in a row. Auston Matthews has 49 goals in 53 games. He is having one of the greatest goal-scoring seasons of all time. Adjusted for era, that is. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into the Hart Trophy race. Is Matthews the front-runner right now for the MVP? If not, who is? We're also going to talk about Morgan Rielly's suspension getting upheld by Bettman. And we're going to talk about how the Leafs are playing without Morgan Rielly leading into the trade deadline. So we have a lot to get into. It's going to be a juicy episode, and I promise you want to stay tuned until the very end. But before we get into all that, it is time to officially welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Anthony Bruno, as always, happy to be here. Kind of bummed, man. I just got back from the rink, and my kids lost a big playoff game. So it's not looking good for us. It's a round robin format. We at least needed a tie tonight. We weren't able to get it. Proud of the kids, though. We were down 3-0 after one, scored in the second, scored in the third, all over them at the end. Just wouldn't go in. So I'll try to get over.
To do with your coaching?
Well, I mean, I like to blame the refs before I blame myself as a coach, but I mean, I'll take some of the blame. I'll be politically correct. I'll be the Toronto Maple Leafs PR thing and take some of the blame. We'll blame everyone collectively. We made mistakes, and I'll take some of the blame. Best
PR team in the league, man. You're learning from the best.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're good at something.
No, it's not great, man. I was hoping you guys would get a dub tonight, but you're not out of it, right?
We need a favor now. Like we need someone to nip somebody, like one of those. Again, it's a round robin, so we need something that's not supposed to happen. But hockey's weird. Who knows? Especially 11-year-olds.
Yeah, anything could happen, man. Especially when you're dealing with young kids like that. It's all right, Lepore. Coach them up, baby. Get that help you need, and then coach them up. All right.
Try my best.
You guys are gonna be all right.
Yeah.
But another team that's doing all right at the moment, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Not bad. Yeah.
Holy cow, 4 wins in a row. Now, listen, I'm kind of making it seem like they've won, like 17 in a row, like the Oilers, or, like they're playing like the greatest team in the history of hockey. It's a nice 4-game winning streak based on how they've been playing most of the season, because it has been a frustrating season, but it finally seems like everything is coming together right now. And obviously, the biggest reason why is Auston Matthews. 49 goals in 53 games. He's scoring at a shade under a 75-goal pace. He's scoring at like 74.8 goals. Like, it's just absurd right now because he's missed one game.
Right.
He's missed one game and still on pace to score like 74, 75 goals. And Jonas Siegel from The Athletic came up with a piece this week.
Good article.
And he mentioned that right now, Matthews is on pace for the second greatest goal-scoring season of all time, adjusted for era, which is pretty insane. Number 1 on the list is Brett Hull. Yep. And if you actually look at the top 5, so Brett Hull from 90-91, Matthews this season, Ovechkin's season in 07-08 when he scored 65, Lemieux in 88-89, and then Phil Esposito in 70-71. So again, take it for what it's worth. It's adjusted for era. It's not perfect. But holy cow, man, the season he's having is ridiculous. So what are your thoughts just on the way he's playing right now and what we're witnessing as hockey fans?
It's pretty nuts, man. I mean, he's clearly just so dialed in and confident and expecting to score. And I looked up, it was earlier today, I looked up his shooting percentage. And if I'm not mistaken, it's in around 20%, which is high, which is bananas high. But you would think if someone was at this kind of pace, it would be even higher. Like, I think Reinhardt's something around 30% he's shooting at, whatever pace. He's around a 50-goal pace. So he's the best goal scorer I've ever seen. And I remember saying that a couple years ago on this podcast, and people flipped out. He's the best goal scorer these eyes have ever seen. He scores different ways. He scores 5-on-5. slap shot, snap shot, wrist shot, backhand, whatever it takes, rebounds. He scores every way, man. He's a freak, and he's just a goal scoring machine. It's like that thing in soccer where you have a big, strong number 9 who just gets his head on the ball every time, and he's guaranteed to score. You can rely on him to score goals. And we're at that point now. We can fully rely on Auston Matthews to score goals. And we'll get in the Hart Trophy conversation. And I hate these conversations because they're so annoying. I mean, like, I love them because they're fun, but also annoying at the same time to listen to the takes people have. But the guy's on another level right now. And the thing is, and you went through the list of guys who have had the best goal scoring seasons ever. There were guys always at the time, or I'd like to look back to see, okay, say Brett Hall, his year when he hit, was it 89? Like, who was second and how close they were. I mean, Matthews is on pace for, like you said, 75 goals. No one else might get 50. He might be the leading goal scorer in the league. That's a 50% margin. Think about that for a second. So, like, I guess Ovechkin, maybe like his year of 65, we'd have to look at them. Espo, when he broke the record in the 70s, where next person was in second. I'm sure some of Gretzky's, there were people miles behind, but there's not much you can say right now other than full stop, no debate. This guy is the best goal scorer in the National Hockey League.
I think the best point you made, and we've made this point on this podcast several times, he scores goals in so many different ways. And I don't think there's ever been a player that's been able to do that. And maybe, listen, I wasn't old enough to watch him play, but maybe Mike Bossy potentially.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people refer to him as like the best like natural goal scorer of all time. I know Gretzky has the most goals, and Ovechkin, you would think, is going to pass him at some point as long as he keeps playing and stays healthy here. He's like a little less than 60 behind the Wayner.
Yeah,
so we'll
not having a good year. I'm feeling better about it this year. Bruno, he's not looking his best.
He's slowing down real quick here. So it's kind of getting a little dicey. I still think he's going to do it at some point. He's going to play into his 40s. I think he's going to stick around until he passes Gretzky.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, you could make an argument for a bunch of different guys as, like, I don't know, the best natural goal scorer of all time. But Matthews scores in every way possible. It's unbelievable. And what's crazy to me is, like, he's not explosive like McDavid or like McKinnon. I don't even think he was quite as explosive as like prime Ovechkin.
No,
even. And Ovechkin was never like a great skater, but I think he was a little bit more explosive. And maybe I'm not giving Matthews enough credit, but the way he just like moves around the ice, finds open space, he's always in the right spot, how quickly he gets his shot off, like the little plays that he makes in tight spaces. It's unbelievable, honestly. And I think he's probably going to score 70. We talked about this, I want to say like 5 or 6 episodes ago, when he was on pace for around 70-ish, 70 plus. And we brought it up. We said, is this guy going to score 70? And we kind of thought, I don't know, man, 70's too big of a number. That's a little wishful thinking there. And now the dude, through 53 games, is on pace for 75 goals. So it's absolutely insane. And looking at Ovechkin's season from 07-08, so he had 65 that year. Next closest was Kovalchuk at 52, and Iginla had 50.
Nice.
And then Evgeny Malkin was 4th with 47 goals. Actually, now I have to name the guy who was 5th on the list because you're never going to get this. You want to take a guess?
In what year?
In 07-08. He's a former Leaf.
He was a Leaf after that or before that?
I think it was before that. He was briefly with the Leafs, I want to say. I can't remember how many years.
And so the guy didn't nip 50 then?
No, he scored 43 goals.
43 goals?
If anyone can get this, like, you're a hockey trivia god, honestly.
Was it Jason Blake?
No, it's a good guess. You want to take another one, or should I just give it to you?
No, because he hit 40. I remember the year before we got him, and we all went bananas. But was that? I'm trying to think of timing wise. My ears are all messed up. But no, you can embarrass me and tell me the answer.
It was Brad Boyes.
I never would have got that.
With St. Louis. 43 goals in 82 games.
Yeah. What was the trade? What was the Boyes trade?
I can't even remember the Brad Boyes trade.
Was he the Nolan deal?
possibly.
Yeah,
I'd have to
go
look that up.
back. Yeah, I'm disappointed. I don't know off the top of my head. But I mean, it was one of those ones they always brought up. Oh, we traded away Brad Boys. We traded away Brad Boys.
But I mean, what a season Matthews is having right now. Like, I don't know. Like, if you had to, like, you always bring this up, briefcase of $1 million, is he going to score 70?
Still, what's hilarious about it is that, let's say Matthews finishes with, if someone told us right now, okay, Auston Matthews is going to finish the season with 63 goals, we'd be disappointed.
That'd be a major disappointment.
We'd be disappointed.
That's only 14 more goals.
Yeah, which is like a 40 goal pace like the rest of the way. So I think he hits 65 and he's going to end up with like 66 or 68 is my number. Because even at 70, so he would need 22 more. How many games the Leafs have left? Like 30 less?
I believe they have 28 games left.
Yeah, so you're still at
so
a
he
crazy
needs 21 and 28 to hit 70 goals.
21 and 28. It's funny because like,
that's
I don't know,
tough, man.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Vegas odds. It's probably a coin flip at that number.
Yeah, when you lay it out like that, it just sounds like very insurmountable. Like, holy cow, man. Yeah, so basically, I mean, it's not as insurmountable when you do the math. So, I mean, it still sounds insane, but he basically has to score at a 62 goal pace over the last 28 games to hit 70 goals. So if he scores at like a 50 goal pace, he's going to come up like a few short, which is insane. Like, it's just absolutely insane. So if he scores like a 50 or 55 goal pace, he's going to come up like 3 or 4 short. It's just wild.
Special, man. Special. But before we get to the next thing, Bruno, I got to read you something. On March 9th, 2002, Brad Boys was traded to the San Jose Sharks along with Alan McCauley and a first-round selection for Owen Nolan.
Oh, you nailed it.
Nailed it, bud. Nailed it. I was nervous. I'm like, I'm going to take some flack in the comments. I got to look this up. And if I'm wrong, I'm getting Bruno to edit it later and cut it out that I made a mistake.
But if you actually guessed Brad Boys while I was asking Lepore that question, you are a certified hockey trivia god.
Yeah, comment down below and let's honesty meter, eh? Be honest here if you actually got it. Come on.
Being honest in the comment section.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
It's time for a quick break for a word from Manscaped. It's a quick New Year's resolution check-in. Gentlemen, have you been doing everything in your power so far in 2024 to look good, feel good, and play good? Ask yourself that, because if you haven't, then you need to pick up Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. This thing is an absolute beast. It'll have you looking your best, and we have an exclusive offer just for you. Use our code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. I promise you will not be disappointed.
Guys, have pride in yourself. Use products that make you, like Bruno said, look good, feel good, play good. The Lawnmower 5.0 is just the tool you need to look and feel and play absolutely fantastic. Head over to manscaped.com, promo code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping.
The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is incredible, but there's so many other products that I promise will help you look good and feel your best. Just check them all out at manscaped.com using our exclusive code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. So that's GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. It's time for an important message from BetterHelp, a sponsor of today's episode. Sometimes in life, we go through difficult times, whether that's personally, whether that's in a relationship, and your mental health cannot be ignored. And a lot of times you can't tackle these situations by yourself. You need help. And that's where BetterHelp comes in. They make therapy easier and much less intimidating for a lot of people. BetterHelp lets you have therapy sessions as a phone call, video chat, or even messaging, whatever is most comfortable for you. BetterHelp will connect you with one of 30,000 therapists in their network. And in most cases, you'll be connected with a therapist within 48 hours. So go to betterhelp.com/GFP for 10% off your first month of therapy. Lepore, this service is incredible.
It is incredible. Anthony Bruno, mental health is something that's very serious. And be aware, if you're going through a dark time, you do not have to try to beat this thing alone. There are services out there that can provide you with some great help. BetterHelp is number one when it comes to that. As Bruno mentioned, there are different ways you can get in touch with people, different ways you can contact people. It's all up to you. Go to betterhelp.com/GFP.
Join 4 million people who have used BetterHelp to live healthier and happier lives. So go to betterhelp.com/GFP for 10% off your first month of therapy to connect with a therapist and see if BetterHelp is right for you. All right, well, Matthews is having a season for the ages right now, but there's been a lot of debate on social media as to whether he's actually in the Hart Trophy conversation, which I think is absolutely absurd. There's some great seasons going on right now. Like Kucherov is tearing it up. He leads the league in scoring. McKinnon right behind Kucherov. McDavid is just kind of having like a quiet, great McDavid season. He's only got 21 goals, but he also has 83 points. And keep in mind, he was scoring at less than a point per game through like his first 12 or 13 games, a little less than a point per game, or he may have had like 13 points in his first 13 games. So he's been on fire since. Pasternak having another good year. There's some goalies having some good seasons like Hellebuck, even like Aiden Hill on Vegas. And then there's Auston Matthews. So right now, like before, you want me to go first? Because the question I'm going to ask you is if you think, like, who you think the front runner right now is for the Hart Trophy.
The front runner? Okay. This is where I'll go with this. Okay. So, like the Norris, the Hart Trophy is a subjective award. People are going to have different opinions, and beyond who they think should win the award, people have opinions on what the definition of the award really is. Is it the best player in the league? Is it the player who had the best season? Is it the player who was most important to his team? And whatever the actual definition of the award is, that doesn't matter because it's voted on, so people can interpret how they want. So what I find so, and I'll say it, man, I think this whole discussion shows the power of Leafs hatred, that people are willing to have this discussion. And when I say that, I'm not saying that you're an idiot if you don't think Auston Matthews should win the Hart Trophy. But if before the season started, we said, okay, the Hart Trophy winner, the guy's going to score 70 goals, your answer would be like, so what else did he do? The guy is having, like you said, one of the greatest goal scoring seasons in the history of the league. And the way I look at it, and I really do mean this, okay? See, the way I see an MVP award in any sport is who had the most, I don't want to say it historical season, but I will say it, the season that will be remembered, okay? There's some guys having great seasons, like you said, okay? If Cooch or one of these guys, McKinnon, keeps going on a tear and they finish with like 140, 150 points, that's amazing. Okay, bravo to them. Unbelievable players. I love both of them, okay? But in 20, 30 years, when we look back at this season, if Auston Matthews nips 70 goals, that's what we'll remember. That's the number that will jump out at us. And I remember it was Charles Barkley. He once said, because it's kind of funny, like the greatness of Michael Jordan, he won 5 season MVP awards, okay, which is a lot. But for Michael Jordan, you're kind of like, how do you not get like 10 or so or something, or 8, like more, right? And Charles Barkley made the point because he actually won an MVP award during Jordan's career. He said it was whoever had the best season. He's like, I had an unbelievable season. I was never better than Michael Jordan, but I just, one year, my points were good. I had a lot of boards, so they gave me the MVP. And I even think till this day, the best player in the world is Connor McDavid, okay? But if you're just looking at a single season, if somebody does something like that you will talk about forever, how could you question the person getting that award? I'm thinking like if someone put up 200 points, and they would get the MVP if they put up 200 points, people know the point I'm trying to make here. Or if a goalie had 50, 60 starts and he had like a 9.55 save percentage, well, what are you going to say? He's at least in the debate, no matter what anyone else did. And I think that's where Matthews' season is. And we'll get into some actual stats a little bit later, but I'll let you go on your rant first.
Lepore, if McKinnon or Kucherov were having this season, Do you think there'd be any debate whatsoever
No,
if
of course
either of
not.
them had 49 goals at 53 games?
Of
I
course
think
not.
like they would unanimously be like the MVP on social media right now. And I know social media is like we kind of live in our own little world. It's not the be all and end all, but I don't think there'd be any debate whatsoever if any of those guys, even McDavid for that matter, had 49 goals in 53 games. But because it's Auston Matthews,
Mhm.
because he plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs, because everyone hates the Leafs, everyone has to nitpick everything that the Leafs do. They're under a microscope constantly. That's why I think this is even a debate at this point. I think Kucherov and McKinnon are having amazing seasons, but you made a really good point about like a season to remember. And I don't think that's like the main criteria when it comes to the MVP, but it is a good way to look at it because, based on the pace right now, like Kucherov and McKinnon are probably going to have like 130, 135 points, which is great. Uh, Maybe they'll score 50 goals potentially, but holy cow, Auston Matthews might score 70 goals for the first time since what is it, Teemu Selanne and Alex McGillney did it?
Yeah, it's 30
Like,
years.
holy shit. And I don't even count those guys a part of like this generation. Like, I think this generation kind of starts from
Post
like
lockout.
Crosby Ovechkin.
Yeah.
So if Matthews is going to have the greatest goal scoring season, basically of this generation, if he's going to have one of the greatest goal scoring seasons of all time, and you look where the Leafs are in the standings right now, it's not like the Avalanche and the Lightning who are below the Leafs, but it's not like these other teams are like head and shoulders above the Toronto Maple Leafs because I think that could swing it a little bit when you look at team success. I don't love putting too much stock into team success, but I think it does matter to a certain degree.
Yeah, impact on the team when people look at that. Yeah.
Exactly. When you're looking at the MVP, it's going to have a little bit of impact. But man, it's hard for me. Like, to me, I just look at it very simply. If you're going to give Auston Matthews the Hart Trophy in his 60 goal season,
Yep.
when he had 106 points, then why the hell wouldn't you give it to him when he's going to score 70 plus goals and
Yeah.
have one of the greatest goal scoring seasons adjusted for era? Like, it's
Yeah.
just really as simple as that. And I compare the stats, and maybe you were going to do this too, but you could look at even points per game. He had a slightly better points per game in his Hart Trophy season. It was 1.45. Right now, he's at 1.38. So slightly, and in that Hart Trophy season, he was third in the NHL in points per game. Right now, he's fifth in points per game. So he's slightly off his points per game pace. But I mean, holy cow, the goal pace just speaks for itself. So again, I don't want to sound like a Leafs homer, and I don't want to agree with everything you're saying, but I have a very difficult time right now not putting Auston Matthews number one. Right now absolutely is number one on my heart ballot. And I think 2 and 3 are probably McKinnon 2. And the only
Yeah.
reason I have McKinnon over Kucherov because they're having very similar seasons. And I just think you got to put a little bit of stock into team success. And right now the Lightning are kind of like a bubble playoff team. I mean, they're in a playoff spot, but the Avalanche are just a better team in general. And a big reason for that is obviously Nathan McKinnon. So I would have it Matthews 1, McKinnon 2, Kucherov 3 in my heart balloting at this moment.
Yeah. See, the thing about even impact on the team is we've said all season, this Leafs team isn't very good. So, I mean, you can break it down again. These are debatable things. The Leafs are on pace for, I think, again, 104 points at this point on this recent tear because of this recent tear. If you had told me months ago before in the summer that Auston Matthews was going to score 70 goals, I would have thought we won the President's Trophy. So he's carrying this team. I mean, the Leafs have good players and guys are producing. Nylander had his tear. Marner's been hot lately. But we'd be fucked without 34 in the lineup right now. And I don't want to say we're comfortably in a playoff spot because we're Leafs fans and we're never fully comfortable. But man, like he has put this team on his back. And if we want to get like into actual stats, this is the one that jumps out to me. Okay. So Matthews has 49 goals at this point. 14 are on the power play,
which isn't a lot,
which is not a lot. So Auston Matthews has 35 even strength goals. So if you removed his if you just count his 5-on-5 goals, he would be third in goals. Reinhart with 39, Kucherov with 36, and Reinhart has 39 goals, 22 are on the power play.
There you go.
Like, how much more impact do you need to see in terms of a number? Think of it. And we still have games to go. He might win the goal scoring race if you remove his power play goals.
That's a stat, man. That is a stat.
I'd like to even see if that's ever been done.
It probably hasn't, honestly.
Or if it has, it was like a Euro Gretzky.
Yeah, maybe in one of the Gretzky or Lemieux like insane seasons that they had, but I don't think anyone else has done it.
No. I don't get it. And well, no, I shouldn't say that. I do get it because people hate our guts and they hate the Leafs guts. And you nailed it. If it was Kucherov or McKinnon doing that, it'd be literally a unanimous MVP win across the board. And we would just be waiting. But even too, what's strange is, and maybe it is the points thing. Like they were talking about it. I think it was on SportsCenter last week. Matthews was 14-1 to win the Hart. And then he has 2 hat tricks. And now I think he's down to, I think they said 8-1. Like even at 8-1, like he was
still a pretty good bet.
But beyond Matthews, beyond whoever we're talking about, if someone told me the leading goal scorer in the league is 14-1, what? All day. You put your house on. Oh, that's crazy talk. And I wonder, could it be maybe how like things affect people's mindsets simply because like the Leafs haven't had their best season, so people are just kind of I don't want to say they've been disappointing, but in terms of as far as a points total goes, unless they really go on a tear, they're going to finish below where they have in recent seasons. So maybe people are just kind of like meh about it, and it's not as exciting. And to be fair too, I know what this is too. Again, like the Norris, it's a subjective award, so sometimes they kind of make it a lifetime achievement award. Right? Like, you know what? Let's give that guy 1 because this person's won before. This person's got 5. Like, it's to the point now. I think it gets this way. And it did get this way with Gretzky eventually, where he was still leading the league in scoring and not winning it. Like, even that year with Brett Hull, and this is where the debate comes in. I think Gretzky finished like 30 points ahead of Brett Hull. But they gave it to... I
think you're right. I don't know if it was exactly 30, but it was in and around that range.
He was miles ahead, and they gave it to Brett Hull because of a season. I think we're at a point now where voters will try to find an excuse not to give it to McDavid. Because
it's just voter fatigue, honestly.
100%. That's a great way to put it. So I think McKinnon, like Matthews is 1-1. I think McKinnon is kind of the guy now who's,
because even Kucherov's 1-1.
Yes.
So McKinnon's really the only guy, those top guys, and Pasternak that haven't won a Hart Trophy.
I don't know Pasternak, man. Like,
he's not. He's kind of on the outside looking in, but he would be like in that next group, I would say. Like you could probably include Reinhart in that as well because he has 39 goals. But again, I think it would be absurd if Sam Reinhart finished top 3 in MVP voting, like just based strictly on the eye test. Like, I was watching him during the All-Star game and I was like, holy shit, this guy has this many goals this season. Like when you watch him play, he does not stick out. Like when he's playing with the best players in the world, he doesn't look like one of the best players in the world. So to me, it's insane. He's a good player, but it's insane that guy is scoring at the pace that he's scoring at.
Again, like I said, his shooting percentage, man, you know what? I think I have it.
Yeah, no, I actually checked it out. 27% Lepore.
There you go. I was going to look at it right now. So 27%. And you know what this just screams? A guy who's having his best goal season ever, shooting at a crazy rate. It screams bad contract coming up because he's a free. It was like the Skinner year. He scored. Was it 40? He got the year of his contract, and then it was like the worst contract in the league for many years. Screaming, like we always say, one stupid team we'll give him the money, and good for him, get paid. And if he gets 50, he's gonna get paid. But nah, the whole Matthews thing, like I said, it was 14-1, which was bananas. Now it's in around 8-1. What would you think fair odds should be on Matthews winning the Hart Trophy?
Honestly, I think he's the favorite.
Yeah, me too.
Like I would have him priced as the favorite just because of this insane goal scoring season he's having. Like again. If this was any other player in the league, they'd be a slam dunk Hart Trophy winner at this point through 53 games. Like no one would even be debating this. But because the Leafs have had a rough season, and I think that was a great point you made, I think it's this thought that, the Leafs aren't that good this season. How could we give it to him when they're kind of a mediocre team? But slowly, they've been kind of turning the corner. And this is coming from 2 guys, me and you, who've been kind of shitting on them most of the season. But based on what I've seen, especially defensively, the last little while, how tight they are. And even Sheldon Keefe. Everyone wanted to fire Sheldon Keefe. This guy is, with the guys that he has at his disposal, with the injuries that they've dealt with players just playing like shit, like Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi, he is finding a way, man. And he has this team playing some good hockey right now. And slowly but surely, like they're back at around 103, 104 point pace. I don't know if they're going to, get to like 110 points this season. That's still unlikely. But if they keep creeping up the standings and Matthews stays at this pace, I think it just makes the case even stronger. But if they start to fade a little bit, they become a wild card team, then it gets a little dicey. Then people will probably use that against him. But guess what? The Tampa Bay Lightning are going to finish as a wild card team. I don't think they're going to finish ahead of the Leafs. And people are so quick to say, oh, Kucherov's having a great season. He is having a great season. But again, I don't think he's been quite as impactful as Matthews. Another stat, Matthews has scored 20% of the Leafs goals this season.
Yeah.
1/5 of Toronto's goals this season have been scored by Auston Matthews.
I forget the exact number, and points are points, but primary point percentage, Matthews is number one because of course goals are a primary point, and total primary points, he's second. He's a few back of Kucherov. So again, there's a lot of second assists for these guys, but it's funny. You mentioned Bertuzzi and the season he's had. So the Ducks game where the Leafs won 9-2, very entertaining. Matthews got a hat trick. Okay. Bertuzzi scored. And I started laughing. And my wife's like, what are you laughing at? I couldn't help but think, if someone asked me before the game, what is more likely, a Matthews hat trick or Bertuzzi getting one? I probably would have bet on Matthews. And people can say I'm lying, but Matthews has 6 hat tricks and Bertuzzi has 7 goals. Think about that for a second.
That's absurd. He almost has more hat tricks than Bertuzzi has goals this season. And you know what? That's another big stat. 6 hat tricks?
I was going to say, Bruno, everyone's talking about the 70 goal thing, the record. Again, Gretzky geek. Gretzky has the record with 10 hat tricks in a season. He did it twice. Imagine he ties that or beats that. I mean, again, you look at how many games are left and think, what, he's going to have to get a hat trick every, 7 games?
Every 7-ish games, yeah.
But the way things are going, I mean, and with what he's done, you wouldn't definitely not believe it. Maybe you'd bet against it, but you wouldn't be absolutely flabbergasted if he did it. But I'll ask you this one, Bruno. As far as the points go, okay? So let's say Auston Matthews finishes with 70 goals, okay? He's not going to win the Art Ross.
No, we know that.
What would the points number have to be? Because like you said, you think he should be the betting favorite. So that means he would get your vote. What would the points total have to be for you to vote for the other player?
So Kucherov and McKinnon, one of them, because I'm just saying those guys because they're like head and shoulders above everybody else. McDavid, who knows? McDavid might even win the Art Ross Trophy in the last 30 games, but they would have to finish like 40 plus points ahead of Matthews.
So it's more about the gap.
It would have to be the gap. Like, the year that Matthews won the Hart, he had 106 points. So like I said, he was third in the league in points per game. McDavid that year led the league in scoring. So I'll tell you exactly how many points McDavid finished with the year that Matthews won the MVP.
I was going to ask you that actually, but I'm going to put you on the spot. You dig through to try to find it.
Yeah, so McDavid, 123 points that season. He had 44 goals, 123 points. That was the year Jonathan Huberdeau, who's fallen off the face of the earth. And Johnny Gaudreau finished tied for second in the league in scoring with 115 points. Draisaitl had 110. Kirill Kaprizov 108, and then Matthews had 106.
So
he finished
17 points.
What is that? Quick math here. 17 points.
Yeah,
as
17 points.
17 points.
It's close. I mean, that's not. I mean, yeah.
And right now, when you look at the scoring leaderboard, Kucherov, I believe, has 94 points.
Yeah, they're in the 90s. So even getting their pace.
He's 21 points ahead of Matthews right now, and he's also played 3 more games. So again, like when you look at points per game, Matthews is 5th. It's Kucherov first, McDavid second, McKinnon third, Pasternak 4th, and Matthews 5th in points per game. Yeah. Nylander 7th in points per game, and Nylander's having a great season. Raw points, he's 9th. right behind Auston Matthews. And I don't want to hear this bullshit about like Matthews has all these great players
Oh, that was
around him,
another one. Yeah.
Marner, Nylander, and Tavares. And what? Nikita Kucherov doesn't have great players around him. He doesn't
Yeah.
have Braden Point and Steven Stamkos.
Yeah, the Leafs are the Leafs are everyone's worst team ever, except for when they can use it as an argument that they're good because it makes things easy for their
It's
players.
brutal. And same with Colorado. Nathan McKinnon doesn't have Mikko Rantanen and Cale Makar. Give me a break. That's a terrible argument. So
see,
yeah.
then their points. I mean, like if they're in the 90s, I guess is what their pace is like in around 130. It's like that's the number. Like to me, that doesn't do it. Like the number I was gonna say, like 150 maybe. If someone pulled off 150 points, like I would listen to that and say, yeah, man, 150 points. That's almost 2 points a game. It's insane.
Yeah,
right?
Kucherov right now is scoring at a 138 point pace, which is very impressive. But we've seen McDavid do that.
Yeah. So
a few times.
I don't know. We'll see how it unfolds. I just can't see them not awarding the league MVP to a guy who has one of the best goal scoring seasons ever. And again, to go even further, how people are arguing against it. Crazy talk. Absolute crazy talk. Again, you don't have to think that he should get it, but to sit there and say it's wrong for a guy who scores 70 goals to get the Hart Trophy is absolutely insane. It's like a guy throws for 100 touchdown passes and you're like, yeah, but no, there's no yeah, but the guy dominated.
Yeah, or it's like in baseball, if someone hits 70 home runs again, like how are you not giving that guy the MVP?
Yeah, his on base percentage. I mean,
yeah, his OPS plus and his WRC plus was slightly lower, so we got to give the guy with 48 home runs and who had 175 walks the MVP. Right. Like it's just like I get it. Like I'm a stats nerd too. I love stats. I'll dive deep into the analytics in any sport, but holy cow, like people are just making every excuse in the book to not give it to Matthews. And the same thing happened the year that he won the Hart Trophy. There were so many fans being like, he's not as good as McDavid. But you said it.
Yeah.
I think we could all agree that McDavid is the best player in the world, but that doesn't mean that every season he has the best season. It was like the year that Matthews won the MVP. He just had a better season. He scored 60 goals. He was the first guy to do it since Steven Stamkos. And he won the MVP. Mm-hmm. So, suck it, haters. Anyway, let's move on now, Lepore.
Shall we?
To the Morgan Rielly news.
Yeah.
So Rielly, as we talked about, we devoted an entire episode to this on the last show.
Fun.
Talking about the whole incident with Ridley Gregg, cross-checking him in the face. He got a 5-game suspension. Anyway, they appealed the suspension. The NHLPA appealed it on behalf of Morgan Rielly. But again, Rielly went to the appeal. Shanahan, Brad Treliving, Rielly's agent. There was a lot of people involved. But anyway, Commissioner Gary Bettman had the final say on this, and he decided to uphold the suspension and to keep it at 5 games. And I read through like the whole transcript of the decision and all that, and I get where Bettman's coming from. I just still think the NHL Department of Player Safety is a joke with how inconsistent they are. And the big thing with this is they're really like hammering home the point that it happened after the play. It didn't happen like in the heat of battle. But I'm still in the camp of if you're not going to suspend Jacob Trouba for taking a baseball swing at a dude's head when he basically goes head hunting every single night and is one of like the dirtiest players in hockey, then how are you then giving a 5-game suspension to Morgan Rielly, who, yes, he committed a pretty brutal act and he shouldn't have done that, but a 5-game suspension I thought was harsh. So anyway, first, what are your thoughts on Bettman upholding the suspension?
I'm not surprised. I don't think many Leafs fans are surprised by the decision, simply because, and as soon as anytime it's announced, oh, the player's challenging it, and we knew it wouldn't happen because they've already played 4 games, but let's say Bettman cut it to 3 games as an example. That makes the Department of Player Safety look really bad, right? And it shows the sort of like it shows there's kind of a conflict there. So I think it has to be something very, very questionable for Gary to make a decision that would actually be impactful. And most people said, it's worth a shot. They at least have nothing to lose, and maybe it saves them a game. and some money for that matter, because I think they said the number's 40 something $1,000 that like one game would have cost them. And that, I mean, that's not, I know they're millionaires. That's all not insignificant. But I wasn't surprised. I mean, it's the league. They're going to stick together. But funny how, again, the vibes that fans get. Imagine the Leafs were 1-2-1 in the 4 games without Morgan Rielly. I got to admit, man, that alert came through, the tweet came through that it's going to be the 5 games. And I was kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, now we kind of don't care because the Leafs are 18-2-1 in their last 21 games without Morgan Rielly, which is maybe the craziest stat that we've spit out during this entire episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's wild. I honestly can't believe how well they continue to play without him. That's been my biggest takeaway. I don't totally agree with Bettman upholding the suspension. Like, I think it was more of like a 3-game suspension. He did reduce Spezza's suspension a couple years ago when Spezza got 6 games for that flying knee to Neil Pionk in the Jets game. And Spezza was the same thing. Like, he had never been suspended before. He's like one of the cleanest players in the league throughout his career. And George Peros was like, you're getting a 6-game suspension. So Bettman reduced that to 4 games. So yeah, I still don't think it should have been a 5-game suspension, but man, the way that they are playing without Morgan Rielly, it's unbelievable. Like, I don't think they're better without Morgan Rielly, even though the numbers, like their record would indicate that they actually are, which is insane.
114 point pace someone posted. They've been without Morgan Rielly in his career.
It is absurd because it's not only the last 2 seasons, like all time. I think the Leafs are like 42-18-8 or something crazy like that without Rielly. Like it's absurd. And 18-2-1 over the last 2 seasons without their number 1 defenseman. But then you watch him in the playoffs and you see everything that he does. Playoff Morgan Rielly comes out. He's controlling the pace of play. He's making plays all over the ice. He wears his heart on his sleeve. Like, he's an amazing player. So it's kind of crazy that they're continuing this pace. But yeah, I mean, it's very eye popping. Like, man, like I know like the Penguins, like when Crosby went through all those injuries of his early in his career, like they put up pretty good numbers without him. Like, I don't know if they played a 110-point pace without Crosby, but they were, I don't want to say significantly over 500, but they always had a good record without Sid. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting when like these great players are out of the lineup. And listen, Rielly is not Crosby, but you get what I'm trying to say here. The Leafs shouldn't be this good without their number 1 defenseman. So I honestly, I don't even know how you explain it, really. Like, everyone's just stepping up. People are getting more ice time. Players that are actually good, but they're kind of buried in the lineup, are getting more of an opportunity. All their other star players are still in the lineup, but it's still pretty interesting what they're doing.
Yeah. What I've always attributed to is when you're in a situation like this, you're forced to play with more structure and to really use your brain, because you can't just rely on a player or players for that matter, if there's multiple injuries, with a lot of talent. So I think it's kind of that thing that just like takes over a team that, hey, our most important defender is not in the lineup. We really have to button up. And it's subconscious and it just kind of happens. But they've been playing. I always make the reference about how there's a certain style of play that reminds me of the German national soccer team, where it's just structured and fundamental and it's consistent. That's how they've looked in these 4 games. Like, they've looked fantastic in these games. Maybe not the Flyers game, like that one they kind of escaped, but like that road game against St. Louis, it's great. They played amazing. Obviously the Ducks are the Ducks, but we blew them the fuck out. Sure, why not? So bravo to them, bravo to Keefe. But like I said, I just think it's a thing where teams are forced to play they're forced to play a structure that's more suitable to win as a team. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, looking at the numbers, just the ice time of all the defensemen since Rielly's been out of the lineup. Obviously, the big guy that stood out is TJ Brody. He's leading the team in ice time, playing over 23 minutes a night. So Brody over 23 minutes, Liljegren over 23 minutes.
Lily's looked good, man, in these games. Lily's looked really good, my boy.
McCabe over 21 minutes, and Benoit over 21 minutes a night
Crazy.
during this
Benoit.
stretch without Morgan Rielly. So yeah, it's pretty awesome how much everyone has stepped up. Like Brody's looked great. Like you said, Liljegren has looked really solid because, people were starting to sour on him a little bit. Like, he's never going to be what we thought he was going to be when we drafted him in the first round. But I think it's just a matter of when guys are out. See, the thing with the Leafs is they're so top heavy. They have these 4 guys making all this money. Then you have Rielly, who's the 5th highest paid player, making 7.5. And those guys are just going to play a lot. That's just how it is. Like, go look at the Colorado Avalanche. Their top guys play so many minutes. But the thing is, there's other good players on the team. And sure, they're not like superstar players, but when they get a bump in ice time by 2 or 3 minutes a night and get to showcase their talent a little bit more and get a little bit more comfortable and get a little bit more confidence, it's not the worst thing in the world. And I mentioned this that first game when they played St. Louis, when Rielly was out, first game of his suspension, Marner and Tavares were both ruled out with the flu. The Leafs went from -210 favorites on the money line to -190. So it just goes to show, the books, even when these star players are out, they still view the Leafs as a really good hockey team, right? And maybe that's just because Matthews and Nylander were in the lineup, so they're like, whatever. Leafs are gonna fucking win as long as these 2 guys are playing. But it just goes to show, man, maybe the Leafs are a little bit deeper than we give them credit for, and that we're just kind of blinded by how much the core 4 actually carries them. Because even look at Bobby McMahon, for example. He's gotten a little bit more ice time, getting a little bit more opportunity. All of a sudden, he looks like he's actually a pretty good player.
He's going to get a shot in the top 6. He's going to get a shot.
And then they might re-sign him, and he might be the next hidden gem. You think about all the hidden gems from the past that Dubas was pretty good at uncovering, right? So, again, I still think it's insane that they're 18-2-1 without their best defenseman, but I'm trying my best here to kind of explain why that might be happening. I'm trying my best to talk through it at least.
I hear you. Yeah, but keep it going, boys. But let's be honest, as Leaf fans here, Arizona's lost 10 in a row. There's all this hype about Matthews and Nyes being in Arizona. Matthews might hit 50. Bet the house on the Coyotes, man. It's gonna be Leafs outshoot the Coyotes 55-21 and lose 2-1 on a late goal. Just horrible. Get ready for it.
You could totally see that happening. One sneaky thing about the Arizona Coyotes, they're pretty good on home ice. Last year, they were really good at Mullet Arena. This year, 15-13 at home, 8-15-4 on the road. So they definitely play better in that arena. Now, I still think the Leafs are going to win the game. They're playing well. Matthews is going to score 50, right? It's too much of a storybook to score his 50th in Arizona. It's going to happen. And I know at 50 goals at this point is kind of nothing for Auston Matthews, but it's still going to be pretty cool. He scores 50 in his hometown against the team that he grew up cheering for, right? It's going to happen.
If Matthews scores, here's a question. This is interesting. Social dilemma here. If Matthews scores a hat trick in Arizona, would Coyotes fans throw hats?
Oh, absolutely.
As the Arizona boy?
Absolutely. You know why? Because they're holding out hope that one day down the line, he's going to say, you know what? I'm bringing my talents to Arizona.
That was
probably go play for the Coyotes.
How we talk about Leafs hate and how it affects people's brains. That may have been the worst take of that
horrible take.
He's gonna go to Arizona. Why? Because he's from there. Then I will make that argument for every player from the GTA ever. If I could just say, he's from Toronto. Well, it's not that easy, guys. Especially in a terrible franchise. Why would he go there?
Oh, that's the thing. You're leaving the best franchise in hockey. And again, not the most winning franchise, but the best, most well-run, you are treated like a god franchise to basically the worst franchise in the sport. Yeah, why would he do that? To me, I always viewed it as sort of an end of career thing. If after he wins a cup, wins some more individual awards, maybe he goes, you know what? I'm going to go back to the desert. Maybe play my last year or two in Arizona.
Yeah, they give him a lot of money, make him captain, farewell tour. Why not?
Yeah, it's possible. The last thing I want to briefly touch on. So, like, thinking about how good the Leafs have played without Rielly, like, has that changed your mind in terms of what they should do at the deadline?
No, no. For me, it's still the same thing. I don't want them paying a high price for a rental in the way of trading something like a good young player or a prospect or a first round pick. If they do get rid of an asset like that, I want to see something in the way of a guy who will resign or term. If they're going to make a move, and we talked about it before, I think a couple weeks ago, if they're going to make a move for a fifth round pick for some depth or some security at D, I'm okay with that in the way of a rental. But no, I'm not feeling it. And I think too, maybe we've just seen enough playoff hockey with this team now that I mean we've had some deals blow up in our face. I mean, people forget when we traded for Boyle and Plekanec, which were second round picks for those guys. Of course, the Foligno deal, Ryan O'Reilly last year. We've traded away good stuff. And then we watch ourselves lose to teams that were quote unquote better than. So it's like, well, what's the point? If it's a lottery in any given series, why are you trading away assets just to give yourself a 1 or 2% chance better to beat that team? So I don't want to see it, man. I don't want to see a big splash in the way of a rental, and I don't think they need to, because I think the East is open as well, and I think maybe that helps the case. Um, the I guess in a case like last year where you had Boston that was an absolute juggernaut, and they from the outside at the beginning it looked like they just had a path to the Stanley Cup final. If a team like that wants to load up, yeah, load up, because you're the best team. Why not be even better and really put your foot down and strangle teams to death with your talent? But where the Leafs sit, I think they sit where a lot of teams are. They could lose in the first round, I wouldn't be surprised, and they could win the East, I wouldn't be surprised. So why would you do away with a good young player, a prospect, or a high pick? No, I wouldn't be cool with that. You?
No, you make some good points. I don't think they should be as aggressive as they have been at previous trade deadlines. Like, we've seen some deals blow up in their face. Like, obviously the Foligno deal was not good whatsoever. And then even like, you look at the Ryan O'Reilly deal, it worked out. He
Yeah.
was good, but they
Here we
lost in the
are.
second round in 5
Yeah.
games. It didn't really bring them that much closer to winning a Stanley Cup. And then also, I think the Leafs have also learned their lesson about the roster turnover. Like, I think that was very under talked about last season, how much the roster changed late in the year. I was listening to Rick Bowness and Rick Tocchet talk to Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts. I think they must have shot the interview during All-Star weekend, and they were asked about like acquiring guys at the trade deadline. And I can't remember if it was Bonus or Tocchet. They kind of both alluded to this. They said like it's really like people don't understand how tough it is when you bring in new guys at the deadline and how quickly those guys are forced to get acclimated, because it's not only on the ice and learning the team and learning the system, then they got to go find a house. They got to figure out where their kids are going to school. Their wife is obviously affected. Their whole family's affected by the move, right? So there's so many moving parts. And think about what the Leafs did last season. Like, they completely revamped like almost a third of the roster at the trade deadline. So they were kind of moving all of these pieces around on the fly. And sure, like, they had the grit and the toughness and the snot and all that stuff with all those guys that they brought in. But I think it also made it tough on the team to gel and really like find their rhythm. And I know that they finally won a playoff series, so you could say, hey, like, it paid off. But I think if you want to make like a really deep playoff run, you can't be making that many moves prior to the deadline. You got to make like that last move that kind of puts you over the top. So I think the Leafs have kind of learned their lesson. And now I know they have a new general manager, slightly new philosophy. But I think I think he's gonna try to add a defenseman, because I've said before, like, Mark Giordano should not be playing a single minute in the playoffs. I think he stinks.
Yeah.
So maybe find a way to add a defenseman that could play like 18 minutes a night in the playoffs. I think that would be good if you want to add maybe a depth forward potentially, but I'm not trading away like Easton Cowan or one of their, first or second round draft picks, or even like Fraser Minton, who I'm not honestly that high on, maybe compared to other people. Like, I'm not making some big splash move for a guy who's really not going to make that big of an impact.
Yeah, no. And I think, and I got no proof of this, but I kind of think that's where the franchise is sitting too. I don't think they're ready to go guns a-blazing. I just don't get that vibe. Whereas before Dubas, you kind of knew shit was coming. You just knew like we're gonna get an alert and everyone's gonna go crazy. Or Ryan O'Reilly, Foligno every time, Luke Shen. I mean, just fun stuff like that. But no, I don't see it, man. And I hope they don't. I'll say it again.
I'd be shocked at this point if they make like a huge splash trade. Like, I think they'll do something, but I don't think it's going to be very significant.
Yeah. Like I said, if they do something, I'd like to hope it'll be something that has some term.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up this podcast?
No, I'm looking forward to my dinner, man. It's a late night. I raced home from the rink, had to record a pod, grind it out, man. And kind of funny, Bruno, episode 134. And the topic is Auston Matthews. Ooh, it's a sign, man.
Look at that, eh? It's written in the stars. 34, gonna win the Hart Trophy.
What episode will we be at when he hits 70 goals? We'll have to do some math on that.
Probably be around 140.
Comment down below, everyone. What's your guess? What's your guess on what episode we're at when he gets to 70? Maybe we should have that as a contest.
I know, eh? I was just thinking that should be another jersey giveaway. It's not official, so don't spam the comments with that. But yeah, no, I love that, actually. I don't know. It could happen episode 138, 139, maybe 130 on the nose. I think he's going to do it, Lepore. I think he's going to score 70 fucking goals. I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I think he's going to do it.
Probably regrets signing so early now, doesn't he?
I know, eh? I mean, listen, I'm still kind of cheesed that he didn't sign an 8-year deal, but I mean, I love Auston Matthews.
What's his number? That's not getting talked about enough. Had he not signed, what's his number now? 15 million.
15 million.
Thank
and he would have had the leverage too.
Oh my god,
pretty scary to think about.
Yeah, let's throw that in the trash and never speak of it ever again.
All right, that is gonna do it for episode 134 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. If you're a new listener or a longtime listener and you really enjoyed this episode, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on either Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you really liked this show, you have no idea how much it would help if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and while you're at it, ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. Go Leafs, go Auston Matthews, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.